You guys, we are about to read the book of Judges, and it might not be what you think it is when it comes to the fact that it is all about discipleship. Because get this, Moses was a leader that led the Israelites out of Egypt. And then he passed on his leadership to Joshua, and Joshua passed on his leadership to... Actually, there's not a specific person he passed it on to. And that's part of why Judges is so important, because we see what happens when a leader does not pass on what they know about God to the next generation. See, what happens is in Judges is it's a group of people that are for God, but then they decide they know better than God. They don't remove the sin in their life. They don't remove what's polluting them and their families. And because of that, they start justifying it. They start sinning, living sinful lives. And then they get punished for it. And then they repent, and then the cycle continues. God forgives them, they're all for God, then they decide they know what's better, and it's just a continual cycle. And this happens like over the span of over 350 years of these cycles. And what you and I can learn from it is that as leaders, I don't care if you're in 6th grade, as leaders, we get the opportunity to take what we know and pass it on to somebody else. That's what Jesus asked us to do in creating disciples, in investing in people, in investing in relationships. And so I'm excited to jump into the book of Judges, see what we can learn about God's redeeming and redemptive plan, and also read some really crazy stories. Like, I'm not kidding. These are like headliners to tabloids, like messed up. Like when I was reading Judges 1 through 5 to prep for this video, I was like skimming some of them because they're gruesome and they're gross and why? Whew. Why? Well, I don't actually know all the reasons why, but I do know that Judges reminds me that God uses people, not perfect people, but people right where they're at. When you read chapters 1 through 5, you're going to find some interesting predicaments that people find themselves in. But one cool one that I found when I first started reading it is that God used Caleb's younger brother to be the first leader to lead Israel towards God's plan. And Caleb was one of the guys, it was Caleb and Joseph, that went into the promised land and were telling people, no, like this really is where we're supposed to go. And I have to think that because of Caleb's influence on his younger brother, that's why, one of the reasons that he got picked to be the leader. So big brothers, big sisters, and even if you don't have younger siblings, there's younger people in your life. You have an opportunity to have an influence on them to go after God's good plan for them. And then you'll find in chapters 3, I believe it is, maybe it's 4, Deborah was one of the leaders, one of the judges that heard from God. And she was a woman, and it was kind of not common for women to have a major role, especially in men's lives. But Barak, who wanted to go against the enemy, wouldn't go without Deborah because Deborah heard from God. Man, the things we can learn from the people that are choosing to go after God. Are we the kind of people that hear from God and other people want us along for the ride because of that? That's why we read the Bible. That's why we go towards it. And then we got, I'm going to say her name wrong, but it's like Jael? 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 Anyway, she was a woman that was in a community of people that were not Israelites. Now, they weren't necessarily enemies of the Israelites, but they were not God's chosen people. And yet, this woman decided that she was going to go after the God of Israel's plan for her. Even though she wasn't a part of that community. She had a choice. She's the one that like nailed the peg in the guy's head. And, oh, so gross. Anyway, the point of that is that in that opportunity, she was showing that her allegiance was to the God of Israel. Leaders are readers, and as we read Judges, that's such a cheesy saying, but it's kind of true. As we read Judges, we get the opportunity to take that information and pass it on to the next generation, to a little brother or sister, or to, as you get older. Like, we don't have to keep it all. We get to share that and pass it on so that more people can know the good news of Jesus. In She Reads Truth, they have a study about Judges, and they have a section here that talks about giving thanks for the book of Judges. And one of the things it says is, Judges illustrates the fundamental problem of the human heart. When God's people forget his saving acts, they go after other gods. In the end, the book of Judges illustrates an eternal truth. The Lord will build his kingdom in spite of our sin and our rebellion. Whew! Guys, I'm in for this lesson. I hope you are too. I can't wait to see what the rest of this book will teach us about our God who redeems and restores his people. You in? I'm in. Let's go.